Hey, what's up you guys? Kellen, Killing for Company. Today I have a contest entry / congrats to MarcG with the C for hitting 2,000 subscribers. My first few points before we get into this see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil contest. First, there's been a handful of entries already, and I will link to in the description below if you want to jump in the contest and praise Marc for being such an awesome dude with a killer channel. You can check out the description below. I'll provide that link for you. But just before I jump in talking about this contest and the sort of the subject, the records, I wanted to briefly just a couple of memories or comments about my experience with Marc here as a member of the VC. So I really have not had much of a chance to talk to him, even online, whatever. But before I got my channel going, it'll be 3 years on my end this coming winter. I was, kind of searching for people to watch and, records they would recommend, etc. I put a comment in one of Marc's videos way back when, and just, passingly, whatever, just kind of jump in a conversation. He sent me such a thoughtful and earnest response. I just thought that was super cool. And it turned out to be sort of indication of his character and the kind of guy that he is, because he's one of the nicest guys in the VC. And from someone who plays in a band, was part of a scene that was incredibly influential with the death doom scene happening in the UK back in the early 90s. He's an old school death metal guy, and for him to sort of be that, I guess it caught me off guard, right? For an artist like that to actually respond with so much sincerity. So truly a great person. And on top of that, I just want to quickly comment. He's an interesting character because if you watch his channel, he focuses a lot on the modern death metal scene. As of late, at least, I know there's tons of stuff in his record collection that he could talk at length about because he's been a metalhead for a long time. But that seems to be the major focus for his channel as of late, at least. And I think that's cool to find someone who's doing a really good job sort of bridging a gap, right? If you're just getting into death metal, it reminds me a little bit of Ken in this regard, someone from over at Ken's Death Metal Crypt, that there are someone who just unapologetically loves the genre, irregardless of sort of the generation, and feels first and foremost they just want to support the scene as a bottom line. That kind of, instead of being some sort of gatekeeper or saying death metal died in 1994 and everything that came after is a waste of time, he could be someone from that generation who takes that stance. And instead, he's just fully embraced sort of, a generation or two younger who's making music in a style that he sort of identifies with and wants to promote. And I think that's just super cool, that he just embraces essentially all the younger bands that are going on right now from someone who was there when it got going back in the late 80s and early 90s. So you can, once again, I'll give a link to Marc's channel and his video. Please check him out. That's okay. Now that I've thrown so many compliments Marc's way, this challenge is I guess, See No Evil, which was to talk about album artwork, records or CDs, albums. You could look at the actual artwork and absolutely love. You can sort of get lost in them while you listen to the record. Speak No Evil, so records that you love unapologetically, and if anyone were to speak a bad word about them, how dare they, right? Like you will defend them, or you could think that they may be 10 out of 10 records and they're popular and everyone may love them, or they're records that like I'll be choosing here. I don't want to say they're controversial, but we'll get there. But that was the Speak No Evil, or Hear No Evil. Maybe that's Hear No Evil, and then Speak No Evil. I may be getting this messed up, Marc. Sorry, but the latter was records, albums that Marc has talked about, or other members of the VC have talked about, and you picked them up and enjoyed them as a consequence of watching the video. So the first one we're going to jump into here is See No Evil, and because I'll kind of turn this up a little bit. So in the background, we are listening to, this is a MarcG with the C, so I wanted to do a UK band. This is Diamanthian, their record entitled The Infinite Descent. That's playing in the background here. Here at Killing for Company, we're all about 2000s death metal and sort of lesser known bands from that era. So this is a band from the UK. This record came out in 2005. And that'll be playing in the background for you. You can check that out. So let's get into See No Evil. Okay, so first record here. I wanted to go with a couple of records to begin with, at least, that were in sort of Marc's vein, right? So some death metal records that have come out more recently. This is from 2011, I believe. This is the first record by Morbus Kron. This one is entitled Sleepers in the Rift. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Carnivore design in terms of the album artwork, but a whole lot more color going on here. Just tons of crazy shape and architecture, like in terms of how like this tentacled / exposed body, bone, horns, whatever you want to go with. Whatever, a supernatural body horror kind of stuff. But anyway, that was a record even before I had heard Morbus Kron. I think I saw it initially on like a YouTube download, and immediately, you see the album cover and you got to check it out, right? Morbus Kron, for those who don't know, is a Swedish band that was relatively short-lived during the, I guess what is being called the old school death metal revival. One of the first bands, right? This record's 12 years old, but around that 2010 time period, more and more bands have started playing in this style, younger bands specifically, and Morbus Kron. This record is a bit more aggressive. Their follow-up, Sweven, from 2014, is even like more progressive and dreamier, and then has hence spawned the band Sweven, who are doing this kind of interesting sort of spatial ambient prog death metal stuff. It's killer stuff, but this is definitely a bit more on the aggressive side, and one of those album covers that immediately jumps out at you. So Morbus Kron, Sleepers in the Rift. Okay. Next one. Man, another one that like caught my eye from a newer, younger band. This is their debut as well, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but this is Finland's Ghastly, Death Velour. This album cover, like the misdirection here. I think that's such a cool way they did the right by the opposing arms, but like coming from a completely different direction. It almost seemed to be like, this individual, her arms, but at the same time they're suspended as this sort of like ghost that's holding up the waterfall, like draping her clothing, but at the same time it's sort of this fluid root thing going on. the color scheme is softer, and once again, these are two bands like that I think are playing in the same space. So where Morbus Kron sort of bows out and turns into Swevin, I think the same fans, you listen to Ghastly, and I think you're going to pick up a lot of the same stuff. But both albums have just some killer artwork. This is super finished to me. Some of the textural side here reminds me a little bit of something you would see in Demigod or Demolik, even in younger band like Morbific. So all these sort of Finnish style cues in terms of how you would depict liquid or even stone, shaping it to kind of make it look like veins, or having some sort of physical characteristic that would resemble a body or muscle tissue. Anyway, this is another one that you see the album artwork, and it took me a while to kind of put together the misdirection side of this equation, but super killer artwork, great record as well. This comes in much later. I believe this 2018 is when Death Velour was released, but younger death metal band. So if you're a fan of Marc's channel, this is definitely in his world. I'm sure he has these. Okay, so I know we're only going to do two, but I thought I would pick a couple other options that I really love that may be unfamiliar to Marc. Maybe he's heard of these bands. They're younger, newer, which I don't know if the style is necessarily in his lane. So first one I believe comes from 2012, and this title's in Latin, so forgive me here, but this is Evangelist, and this record is entitled, I'm going to get this wrong, it's in Latin, so just bear with me here. De Masticone Morturum in Tumulus. Nailed it. But it's kind of like this experimental Black Death, I guess is how I would describe it. Anyway, kind of sit back a little bit. Hopefully the glare there is sort of been removed. But this is another one of those really intricate album covers. Kind of reminds me of something you'd see from Alien, but you get this human face that just devolves into something like it looks like Predator a little bit, but all these other these crazy spiders, and then you look closer, they're kind of skulls with mouths and eyes. It's a crazy ass listen. It's got a little bit of, it's Black Death, but also sort of experimental, and it's like a side of this, it's like death industrial. This is probably their densest full length. Since the band has sort of broken up and gone in two different directions and become increasingly more sort of spatial and ambient, this is very much in a style that I think for fans of who are just really into that constant static tension of a band like Portal or Mitochondrion. Those are the bands that are sort of emerging at this time period in the 2000s, that they kind of pick up the thread and sort of explore this sound. It isn't quite sort of the hollow mess that Portal is. There's a bit more depth. I remember I talked about this before I think some of the band members responded and said that Vasilith was an inspiration of their time at the time period. There's other bands like Antediluvian is another one that comes to mind. But anyway, some pretty wild Black Death stuff. This album cover though is wild, and I think initially it was released on Voidhanger, but when I saw that Blood Harvest had picked up the vinyl release, I knew I had to grab it just because the album artwork here is so bonkers. So that is Evangelist with De Masticone Mortuorum in Tumulus. Okay, we'll just go with that. And last record I want to show here, man, I guess this is like kind of black doom, but the songwriting style is definitely a little bit more on like the doom side of things. This is a band called Waryan. I believe they're German. And the album is entitled Animist. This was released, I believe, on Eisenwald. Yeah. Here, I think the records are sitting in between the gatefold. And the gatefold's really nothing special to look at, so I mean, we got this sort of circular piece of artwork in the center there, which is pretty wild. But maybe, I don't know in terms of like the art, the technique that you use when you want to make something this sort of detailed, but you can tell all just like the very minute pieces that were put into this to do this wild ass. It's like this wizard dude, and you got like this whatever demon elf woodling character. Anyway, this is a really cool release, and just 3 tracks. I think it was originally released as like a mini. It's interesting. I don't know how, if you can actually like after releasing it, you can actually change from a full length to an EP, or how that works in terms of like record label and licensing. But I want to say it was originally released as like an EP, and then it's 3 tracks, but it's like 40 some minutes, so they just decided to turn it to a full length, because I believe it's fully listed as now like an LP, but the double vinyl EP if it is, who knows, right? Who cares? But super killer artwork, and tons of detail here. One of those things that like you zoom out and you look at it and it looks pretty wild, and then you bring it up close and it just, whoever made this, I forget the gentleman's name. Maybe I'll put like a little comment here below. I want to say something St. Clair or St. Thomas. But yeah, he did the artwork for this, and just wild stuff. They haven't released anything, I believe, as a like full length since this, so we're due a new record. But if you like kind of, it's just, I think plays out a little bit more like a black metal release, but in terms of like the world that it's building, right, it feels a little bit more like sinister and occult, and has all these sort of like haunting effects that you would get from like a black metal listen. It's just the songwriting and the guitar work and the pacing of it is super sort of slow and methodically sort of unfolds. So that is a Waryan with Animist. All right, so there are my albums. Let's move into the next segment in this video. Okay, so question number 2 is Hear No Evil. Okay, I think I'm going to get this right if I take my time. So Hear No Evil, records you don't want to hear people talk trash about, I guess. You won't hear a bad word about these records. Now, there's like a whole part of YouTube that's like defending bad records, so on and so forth. That's not what I'm trying to do here. And these are not necessarily like records that I would put, if I had to do like a top 5, whatever, within the genre necessarily. But they're bands that I think can be a little bit of a lightning rod for fans, and are quickly discredited, primarily just due to their like popularity and visibility, and the status. It sort of lends them to a whole lot of criticism and dismissal for people who consider themselves to be like diehard fans of a genre and want something a bit more underground, and so on and so forth. So as I'm sweating here, getting hot in the studio. All right, feeling the pressure. I've talked about this. If you have followed me at all on the Heavy Metallurgy channel, or I was on Gas Mask and Hand Grenades recently, I talked about this record because I truly do love it, and it's my favorite from this band. So this is Mayhem's Ordo Ad Chaos. And this record is my favorite Mayhem record and one of my favorite black metal records. Obviously, like, the band has so much controversy, and it bogs down a lot to the degree, like, I think people's willingness to engage in their work, just because it's like, all right, we don't need to hear any more Mayhem nonsense. Everyone talks about them, right? We got crazy documentaries, on Netflix with the Culkin brothers, playing members of the band. It's just completely ridiculous. It's become something that's like pop culture. And at that level, for a genre like black metal, where so much of it is about like intrigue and anonymity and keeping the mystery alive, it's kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum if you have a Netflix documentary about you. Anyway, but this record is, the production is like a chemical fire. It's always what I think. There's a smokiness and like an opacity to the sound where it just is blurred, and it serves to its credit. Instead of something that's being so explicitly like scathing and a higher register, is in a lot of ways how we've become accustomed to listening to black metal records in terms of like guitar production. It just throws out the rule book, and there's like so much of it lives in like the mid-range, but sort of rounds off a lot of the harsh edges, and as a consequence it just relies on listeners sort of being consumed by the smoke that's pouring out of this. Literally, it just feels like something that is some, liquid nitrogen or some venomous, poisonous gas is pouring out of Blasphemer's guitar. But the totally interesting guitar production. Attila is just submerged in it all, choking out venom through the course of the record. The performances are otherworldly, and the production just puts it over the top. I know there's a lot of things that you could say about this band in terms of their early role in the genre, but when people like throw out like, I'm tired of listening to Mayhem, I bristle a little bit, because this record came along and just completely blew my mind in terms of not only my expectations with the band, being familiar with like the earlier parts of their catalog when I was initially getting into black metal, but also just even in 2007 when it's released, being a unique listen. And sorry, my camera died there. We're back, but yes. So anyway, a testament to a band that continues to try new things, do things a little bit differently than what people expect them to, and or what their most iconic era was defined as, and in the process create potentially their best record much later in the lifespan of the band. So moving on, man. Okay, Cannibal Corpse, Bloodthirst. There's not a lot of Cannibal Corpse that I necessarily need, right? And in terms of a band that is hated on and belied for a lot of different reasons, right? A lot of it justifiably. But this record, let me just wind this back a little bit. Cannibal Corpse, historically, when I hear people talk about them, is defined by the vocalist, right? It's a Barnes versus Corpse Grinder conversation. To me, this band is, to a lesser degree, defined by their vocalist, and in my mind was always defined by the guitarists, right? So this sort of circulating sort of group of guitarists who've come and gone and returned over the years, I think more than anything contributed to the sound of the band And it was always a question for me about like who can play along with Alex. And once Pat O'Brien joined the band, I thought it was the perfect complement. And this era of the band is, for me, from Bloodthirst up through Kill, is like, one, it's my kind of era of death metal that I feel like most, passionate about. But this record for me finds them at their peak. The inclusion of Pat pushes Alex, and now he really has a writing partner to sort of flex, which is ultimately, like, in a lot of ways sets a precedent for a band that was doing sort of groovy, kind of pseudo, not like, I think brutal is kind of overreaching, but we're seen as like a really kind of punishing, grotesque, gory death metal band that gained a little bit of technical flair, just enough to kind of keep it interesting and innovative. They would be surpassed, in the 2000s by bands who played technical death metal over the top. There were definitely bands who were, this comes out in 1999, and were like, Devourments, Less of the Decapitated is coming out. So brutal death metal, not really by their peers at this point in time. But I think it meets two ends of the spectrum perfectly. They converge on this record, and in the process, this is their best record, in my personal opinion. And man, Colin Richardson doing the production of many great album fame, but amazing release here. Bloodthirst, you can talk trash and say, like, maybe most people will point to Tomb of the Mutilated or The Bleeding as being sort of the hallmark records from the band's catalog, and the rest of them are just sort of a waste of time corpse grinder records, where they turned into kind of a, I don't know, like some sort of commercial Walmart death metal. What's the term? A mall metal death metal or something like that? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Cannibal Corpse, Bloodthirst, my favorite Cannibal Corpse record. All right, so we're going to move on to the last portion of this, which is talking a little bit about Marc and his contributions, things that I've listened to over the years, thanks to him, and we'll kind of go from there. Okay, so last one on the list is Speak No Evil. So records that we learned, or I learned, about their existence thanks to MarcG with the C. So, first one I have here for you, death metal / a little bit of grindcore. This is a self-titled release from Vomit Spell. Escape the glare. I think there we go. All right. Nevertheless, so this is this band reminds me a lot of Caustic Wound, kind of a death grind band. Younger. I want to say they're from Belgium. I could be wrong about that. Let me see. I'm going to pull it up here, talk to the Oracle. Germany. Okay. Anyway, released on FDA Records, but if you like, I should say, like, I want to say when Marc was on the Death Metal Island albums with Jeff over at Gas Masks and Hand Grenades and a bunch of other cool YouTubers, he talked about Carcass, and this is a band that I think is playing in a style that's a bit more straightforward, but in a lot of ways that sort of Symphonies of Sickness, you think about it sort of blending a little bit of death metal and grindcore. This definitely does so as well. Vomit Spell, and then I also here have that's from the Vomit Spell's from 2021. Here's another 2021 release. This is Decrepancy with Emetic Communion, band out of Portland. I mean, this is 100% what you can expect over at the MarcG with the C channel. Grotesque, lumbering, super heavyweight, meat dripping off the bone kind of death metal. if there was like a zombie, you know, battle to the death with, you know, like gladiator style, where they're like running at each other while their limbs are barely able to uphold like the chainsaw and hammer that they're wielding at one another, that kind of death metal, yeah, check out MarcG with the C. Okay, so the last one here, those are 2 records, but this is one that's kind of off the similar topic, but this is one where I had heard this prior to actually seeing Marc talk about it, because I remember when it first was released, but he put, like, it just kind of drifted into the back of my memory. I didn't think about it at all, and I saw him talk about it, and like I was immediately like, I need that record. Thank you so much, Marc, for bringing it back to my attention. So this is Sweden's Antichrist. This is a blackened thrash release, Forbidden World. I love this record, and I completely had forgotten about it back from like 2011, I want to say. But well, this is, I guess my music is fading out here. It's a sign that we're ready to go. Anyway, please check out Marc's channel. He's an amazing dude with a killer record collection, and one of the best guys in the metal VC. If you're into, you know, the death metal world, check him out for sure, because he does a good job like churning out videos and talking about newer releases. Being someone who was around from the origins of death metal, who's still here now supporting it all these years later. So congratulations, Marc, on 2,000 subscribers. I know there's a lot more coming your way, and hopefully one of these days I'll get a chance to actually talk to you here. But until then, thank you for all that you do. Congratulations once again, and I'll see you guys soon. I've got another one coming your way, Dennis, because you just cracked 2,000 as well. So Analog Archives, I have a video challenge, so on and so forth, entry I'll be bringing your way here on the Killing for Company channel. Until then, you can catch me guys on the Heavy Metallurgy channel every once in a while, and then I'm trying to put together this video that's been a long time coming on a band called Enchanter/Longings Past. Look for that in the coming weeks. Until then, I'm ready to go. I'll see you guys later. Congratulations once again, Marc. All right, bye.